Hello friends, and welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Y'all, this might be a terrible idea, but we're gonna do it anyway. We are going to plant some lupines here in North Carolina. Now, if you know anything about lupines, they are a beautiful native perennial, very cool plant. However, they really do not like the South. So it is going to be a massive experiment. I am going to try my best to set these really unique, fun perennials up for success here in my North Carolina, a Zone 8A garden. This is a brand new plant introduction from our friends at Walter's Gardens. So this is not on the market yet. We're testing it out, and I am just seeing if I can make it work here in North Carolina. So of course we love lupines because they give us these big, huge, beautiful, colorful spikes of flowers that bring height and interest, color, texture to the garden. So we are going to be adding them to the east facing shade in the morning, sun in the morning, shade in the afternoon flower bed. Like I said, we're going to set these babies up for success. So which lupines are they? Let me tell you. I have got 5 of the Candyland mix, like I said, from Walter's Gardens. These can be 30 to 40 inches, 42 inches tall and about 2 feet wide. They want to have more than 4 hours of sun a day, and they're hardy in zones 4 to 8. Can be in early summer, and just absolutely beautiful, a variation of color because this is a mix, so I have no clue as to what the colors are. So you may be saying, well Jenny, they're hardy in zones 4 to 8. You're at zone 8, why won't they work for you? Y'all, not all plant hardiness zones are created equal. A zone 8 in the southeast is very different than a zone, say, out west, whether you're in California or in Washington or Oregon. We may have the same hardiness zone, but we do not have the same growing conditions. Lupines like to have warm days and cool, dry nights. If you know anything about the South, we do not have cool, dry nights in the summertime. They like to have a really well-draining soil. I have clay soil. So we're going to try, like I said, to set these babies up for success. This garden does face east, so we're going to meet that minimum requirement of that 4 to 6 hours of sun. However, as you can see, we are going into the shade in the afternoon. So this will get a beautiful reprieve from the heat of the summer sun in the afternoon. So what we're going to do is first decide where we're going to put these babies, get them in the ground, and then while I'm here, I got a few other things that we're going to get done as well. I have evenly spaced out the 5 Candyland mixes throughout this bed because this is a, quote, long, narrowish bed. So I want to have that structure that goes throughout the entire flower bed because hopefully they will bloom this year, and so that way we can have 5 of them going through this bed. It just makes them, your eye flow through the flower bed when they are all tall, blooming, and you have that same plant consistently going through the bed. So what we're going to do is I've got my Jenny's Edition, this 7-inch auger. I'm going to drill the holes, put just a little bit of biotone in the hole, and I am going to put a good amount of the Daddy Pete Soil Enhancer. This is the Age Pine Bark Fines. So this will give me really good drainage because drainage is essential with your lupines. So I don't typically do this with my plants. However, I'm trying to stack the odds in the favor of these babies, and we're going to give them really good drainage. My friends, I've said it once I'll say it again, gardening, especially adding a new plant to the garden, is nothing but one big giant science experiment. What's the worst that can happen? It doesn't succeed. What's the best thing that can happen? It grows, blooms, and thrives, and I get gorgeous color from this Candyland mix of lupines from Walter's Gardens. So definitely some keys to success that I am trying to ensure. Best of luck for these 5 babies. I very much have clay soil, retains moisture. Normally that's a really good thing, but with lupines, they like well-draining soil. So if you have sandy soil, yay, these should work for you. Drill the hole, put a good bit of that pine bark in the bottom, just a smidge of the biotone. Now you can see that that root ball is sticking up above the ground. Because they like well-drained soil, I don't want to plant them too deep. I want them to make sure that they're not going to sink and sit in dampness. So all 5 of those, yes, they are sticking up above the ground some, but they had a really good root system already. So trust me, there's plenty of roots in contact with that soil. So all 5 of them are in. Next up on the list, while I am in this space, we're going to go ahead and take care of this. This is what I affectionately call Annette's holly fern. Now, I call it Annette's holly fern because it came from my sweet friend Annette, her garden. And you can see that it is already starting to put out some fresh fronds. That means I need to get in there and clean up all of last year's growth. We've got a lovely collection of leaves in here. So when you see that your ferns are throwing up their fronds, if you still have old foliage from last year, or it's an evergreen like this, or say a autumn fern, this is your time to go ahead and prune it. We're just going to take all that old foliage all the way back down to the crown of the plant. It's going to be tedious, but it is going to be a beautiful before and after. So Annette's holly fern has been pruned. Again, it is not a hard job to do. It is just a little tedious to go in there and to make sure you don't cut the new fronds, right? We want to leave all that beautiful fresh foliage, but take out the old bent brown last year's foliage. Inevitably, you're going to cut a brand new frond. It is okay. This plant is going to flush out massive amounts of beautiful fronds. Now, if you want to, you could have pruned your holly fern before it ever shoots out new growth. So you can totally do that. I did that to my autumn brilliance ferns. They didn't push out any new growth, and I just cut them flat to the ground. I have done that once before with the holly fern, and it kind of came back and bit me because it seems to push out new growth kind of early, and then just like this week, you get that late freeze, late frost. And if I had pruned all the old foliage off, then that really exposes the new foliage and it can get fried. Not again that it's the end of the world. The plant will push out new growth. It's not going to kill the plant. It just kind of sets you back a little bit as far as the prettiness of the plant. So ever since that one time happened with me, I'm like, oh, I'm going to wait until I really think my last freezes are done. Now, of course, I am not in control of the weather, so we could have a freeze still to come. And then, of course, I would probably want to cover this just so I don't have to start all over again. I've got one more very important task to do in here. You've heard me talk about it a bunch. We need to feed our plants. At the end of winter going into spring, I always like to feed my shrubs and perennials that one time of year with a great slow release fertilizer. I'm going to be using 3 fertilizers today. I'm just going to go through really quickly, explain why I'm using each one. and then get these babies all fed, and so that way we can be off to a fantastic growing season. Here I have 3 tones. I have holly tone, plant tone, and rose tone. So let's start with rose tone. Do I have any roses in this flower bed? No, I do not. However, I do have a handful of panicle blooming hydrangeas, smooth hydrangeas as well. This means that the rose tone is actually a great option for them because roses and hydrangeas have the same nutritional requirements. So I will use the rose tone on my panicle and my smooth hydrangeas. Then I've got plant tone, the brown bag, right? So this is what I call the Swiss Army knife. This is the vast majority of the plants will get plant tone. When in doubt, or if you're only going to buy one fertilizer, buy plant tone. It will literally do anything and everything in your garden. And then last, I have holly tone. Holly tone is going to be for my evergreens, so my dwarf Colorado blue spruce, my camellia, those kinds of plants. And then I am going to use it on my serratas and my macrophylla hydrangeas because it's acidic and I would like to have blue flowers. Therefore, this will help give me those blue flowers instead of pink. I am not a precise fertilizer, y'all. Not with a slow release fertilizer. Nope. I have a kind of a hard cup, so I'm just going to scoop and sprinkle. So scoop and sprinkle, scoop and sprinkle. Doesn't matter if one plant gets holly tone and plant tone or vice versa, and it shouldn't have gotten this, but it got that. No, there's grace in gardening. Just feed your plants, right? Great slow release fertilizer, whichever one is your favorite, use that. Great time of year to do it. If you can time it before a rain, that certainly helps. It's not raining here, so I'm just gonna let it go. So we're just gonna get it on top of the ground, and there you go, my friends. Grace in gardening. All right, my friends, so today's project is complete. Lupines are in, the fern is pruned, and everything has been fertilized. And I did go ahead and water because I just couldn't help myself. So I gave the whole entire bed just a nice sprinkle of water, start getting that fertilizer activated, hopefully kind of tone down the tone smell. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. But now, as far as the lupines go, we just sit and wait. I, of course, will keep you updated. Honestly, my main goal, I would consider it a success if they bloomed this year and were beautiful and I got to enjoy them for a couple of weeks, and then if they just died in the heat and humidity of July and August, then that is fine. I just figured, you know what, we're just going to give it a try anyway, because you never know. You've got to experiment in your garden, because sometimes you think plants don't work and they turn out beautiful. So I will keep you updated on Candyland mix. As always, we hope you have found this fun, informative, inspirational. Y'all have a great day. Make sure you subscribe. That way you don't miss these 5 videos that we do each and every week. See you in the next video. Bye, friends.